How did I end up here? Lying in your arms, watching city lights burn the stars.
Ramattra, much like Sergeant and Jungle Queen prior, is yet another hero we've known about for a while now, first having seen him in the cutscene that plays at the end of the Storm Rising game mode, a part of the Archives event, and, you know, it's about time too, considering how much of a cliffhanger the ending was left on for the longest time, but hey, as the saying goes I guess, better late than never. And as for the villain himself, Ramattra's a damn cool one. He has a significant place in the lore of Overwatch, being the leader of the Null sector itself, the main force of issues in the Overwatch universe, and by extension feel like a genuine villain in the lore. Something we've not really had since maybe Doomfist back in 2017. Oh, and he's also another tank hero, so that earns him extra brownie points in my books. But to expand on his lore just that little bit more, Ramattra actually has a close connection with Zenyatta, with them having previously been as close as brothers, following the Omnic Crisis where Ramattra ventured to Nibal. And even despite having long since severed his connections with the Shambhala and Zenyatta, post Mondatta's death where Ramattra went about following his troubling ambitions to defend his fellow Omnics by any means necessary, Ramattra does still seem fond of Zenyatta, despite, well, you know, their very different statuses on coexistence with humans. In terms of Ramatra's actual appeal, aka the gameplay, he's a very unique tank of the tank class, being the first dual form hero on the roster, otherwise being a combination of playstyles, those being offensive and defensive, with his default form, his Omnic form, assuming the latter and his Nemesis form assuming the former. So needless to say, right off the bat, he presents an interesting dynamic. To start, his main form of offense is his Omnic form, the Void Accelerator. This is a linear projectile based firing attack that has seemingly infinite range and no fall off damage whatsoever, along with the ability to deal headshot damage, which is kind of insane honestly if you were to ask me, but whatever. Given its range, it can be handy in taking out ranged targets such as snipers like Ash and Widowmaker, or other targets like Farah, but it can also be used to take out that pesky Torbjorn turret, or just to deal with Symmetra's turrets ahead of time. On its own, it's not exactly efficient, dealing otherwise measly damage if you can't line up all your shots. I'd recommend leading your shots on distant targets, so you might be left open more than you would prefer. So a good thing with Ramattra is a shield tank with his Void Barrier. The barrier can be cast in front of you, much like with Sickness Barrier, but you get to choose where to cast it, indicated by this purple casting line. It stays in place and only for a short time, so it's not ideal for a camping blind. Instead, use it to briefly halt incoming fire in dire situations, in order to allow your teammates to move from their position or to hold against the Bastion doing his thing. Alternatively, given its rapid casting time, you can use it to block certain ultimates on the fly, such as Farah's Barrage, Junkrat's Tire, or even Reinhardt's Shatter. For Ramatra's third ability, this one could actually be used in both forms, the second of which I'll get onto in just a moment, Ravenous Vortex. I joked on my Ramattra gameplay stream how it was essentially just another mini graviton surge, much like how I referred to Soldier's Disruptor Shot, having a gravitational pull that will slow enemies caught within a circle, but will also pull down enemies that are in the air, so reverse the Sigma's Graphitic Flux if you will, and it also deals damage over time. I said I'd get to it, so now it's time for Ramatra's Nemesis Form. Upon activation, Ramattra will transform into a hulking behemoth, gaining additional armor and will briefly gain a new form of offense in Pummel, and a new form of defense in Block, but you will not be able to use Void Barrier while transformed. To start with Pummel, this is a slow melee slash projectile attack that has Ramattra punched straight in front of him, creating waves of energy that have a short but surprisingly effective range on them. This ability will also go right through enemies and barriers by the way, so feel free to go hand to hand with Reinhardt or whoever, and hey, in all the chaos, maybe you might even be able to take out the supports that are likely hanging around the tank. And as for Block, this is pretty self-explanatory. It's an ability that just lets you block incoming damage, and though not completely, it will significantly reduce damage taken from the front. So much like Doomfist's block ability if you will. And again, like that ability, Ramatra's block will also reduce his movement speed. However, similar to Doom's block again, Ramatra's block also doesn't negate stun abilities, which includes Reinhardt's Charge, and Sleep, Doomfist Punch, or even Sigma's Rock, so it isn't the be all and end all. You can also still use Ravenous Vortex while in Nemesis Form by the way, so your options for attacking aren't overly limited. To touch on Nemesis Form a little more here, it can be very easy to get carried away while transformed, feeling like you're unstoppable, but that's far from the case. Given the larger form, you are, well, of course, a much larger target, and the temptation to just beat the crap out of enemies with Pummel may land you in trouble a number of times. So remember, even with the extra shield, you're not invincible. Take advantage of your block in more ways than one, like using it to briefly protect your team should the void barrier be on cooldown, and if need be, you can revert back to Omnic form at any time, allowing for the cooldown to restart quicker, or so you can cast the void barrier. And finally, Ramatra's ultimate, Annihilation. Upon use, you will immediately transform into Nemesis Form until it ends, creating a damage over time effect on enemies close by that's otherwise infinite in the right situations, so long as you're using the Pummel as well, otherwise the ultimate only lasts a measly 3 seconds. The radius is fairly sized honestly, playing into a more aggressive playstyle, but like with the Nemesis Form normally, you are not invincible and can be fairly easily taken out if you get too overconfident. But you do still have the ability to block during the ultimate, so remember that and maybe play the ultimate besides the support. Despite the tank category's passive of slowing ult charge when either damage boosted or healed by a third party, you're already using the ultimate anyway, so it's not like it really matters. Overall, in my opinion, Ramattra is a solid new addition to the lineup. I've seen people go on about how he's super overpowered and another side going on about how he's absolutely useless, but through my time playing him so far, I think he's a very balanced hero. He has his major strengths, such as being a super reliable tank to play alongside the team with and having methods of offense where he can easily hold his own. But he has his major flaws, of course, like lacking viable maneuverability options, even for a tank, and maybe too much of a resilient reliance on team play, where he can absolutely crumble if left alone by his supports. Balance is important when it comes to a game like Overwatch. I think they really struck a good middle ground here with Ramattra, but who knows, maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about. It's more likely than you think.